Technology is a sector unlike any other. It's an industry where the individuals can become billionaires overnight. Technical ideas replace the fundamentals of business, and leaders are rewarded for exhibitionism to the detriment of competence in today's Silicon Valley. Innovation is crowned and not conquered by those who manage to tell a history and to be an eccentric genius. Venture capitalists and the founders are symbiotic. You need radical ideas and the founders want to start businesses on someone else's dime. Companies are kept alive with injections of capital, manipulated valuations, and manufactured media hype, with the aim of surviving long enough to IPO or be acquired. The inspirational speeches, the motivational essays, the salaries generous, flashy advantages, and the characteristics of the founder are not. For it's all there by design to maintain the talent pipeline of new graduates going into the industry. The founders trust you for access talent and operational orientation, while the VCS rely on the founders to educate them in technology. But you are not prophets. To most are ex-bankers, blind leading the blind, and both sides must act to achieve the same day of payment. When you gain in technology, you therefore gain a lot. You only have to win once, which is why there is an almost infinite group of aspiring app founders in you. And that's why both parties are so quick to forgive, reconcile, and work together on the next big thing. But whenever the investors become pessimistic about technology, it doesn't take long for the sector present a new growth story. The most recent was in 2022, when public markets go sour with big data and SaaS. From the beginning of 2010 in Silicon Valley, advocated big data as a revolutionary technology that could reveal deep insight patterns and innovation from huge amounts of data never before available. Captured big data promised a new sophisticated, data-driven world where it would be possible to accurately predict demand before it even exists. The trends before they started and behavior before they occurred. And there was immense potential for the public and private sectors. The police could prevent crime before it occurs. Were to happen, researchers would be able to detect the cancer before it develops. Spread, and companies could optimize products by making the right decisions always and gain a powerful advantage. Big data has been a movement that has as a technology, and SaaS was positioned as a business model, profitable, resilient, high margin, low turnover companies for modern software. But the market has begun to question whether any of these had been real, since the vast majority of consumer startups and SaaS companies were still bleeding years after the IPO, even in the most favorable times. Low interest business conditions in history. There were hardly any winners to point out that out of nowhere the GPT chat was launched and became the next great Silicon Valley success in years of big data and SaaS. Every technology company is now an AI company. Every Fortune 500 needs an AI strategy, and you're just investing in startups via the title of everyone on LinkedIn mentions and every product is a NIA product to maintain the enthusiasm I has brought to the sector. Silicon Valley's leading figures appear before Congress begging for regulation and asking for protection for the workers whose jobs would be displaced, and the spread of fear about a future apocalypse. This music and dance was repeated over and over again until the White House got scared, but the most important is that the public was convinced of the IA's immense potential, and people continue to speculate with conviction that animating artists, translators, and/or programmers are all next in line to lose their jobs. This episode is not a technical debate, but a deep dive into how AI is just the latest story told by Silicon Valley to sweep away previous failed tendencies under the carpet to keep the high valuations and a positive outlook. Prior to the trip had cryptography, Web3 blockchain, virtual reality, augmented reality, big data, IoT, and wearables, all supposedly revolutionary technologies that haven't lived up to the hype. In this episode, we'll dive into the real market dynamics that lead to companies and individuals to dive headfirst into these technological trends, So it all started with big data and why AI is ultimately just more a bomb-band fiction. The end of the 2000s was a period of genuine innovation. The introduction of smartphones and tablets created new markets. Was the advent of mobile internet, 3G geolocation, and apps to where more could be accomplished in this online world than ever before. Now you can track the location of users with data that was not available before, and you designed for mobile devices. Users would organically flock to you for this superior experience. Countless startups have emerged, eager to be the first to move on to these new platforms. One of them was the Gron, an online platform that sent coupons to local businesses. The argument of them was that they were accumulating unprecedented data on consumers and attract paying customers to the merchants, which was more than what Google had to offer. They knew where people were, lived their age, interests, behavior, and fed all these data in algorithms to send only the most relevant and attractive coupons. As the volume of vouchers and the number of merchants increased, how much the more data collected, the faster the group could get customers to a business and more money could be made. Pandora's story was identical to that of the groupum. They scientifically abstract each song down to 480 technical attributes, collect data from each listener to find out what they like, use proprietary algorithms to predict what music they'll like next, and generate playlists. The more listeners, the more data, and the more accurate their data would be. Algorithms, by playing the right song at the right time for each listener, as knew the age, gender, and location of each user, and could sell to advertisers. Another popular app was Yelp, which claimed that data from the user and the effects of the network were their moat, as Yelp knew who was looking for what and where. Like Pandora, they sold these eyes to the advertisers. Grubhub went in a different direction and focused on the experience delivery. Restaurants didn't need to create apps. Instead, they could pay Grubhub to support online and mobile orders during the night. And Grubhub had algorithms to personalize feeds and predict what users wanted to eat, when other pioneers in this period were Etsy for Square, Twitter, and WhatsApp in the early 2010s. The narrative had expanded. Smartphones had become popular, and the apps have become commonplace, and mobile experiences have become the norm. It was at this time that Marc Andreessen published his famous essay, Why the Software is Eating the World. The thesis was simple. The data was gold in this new digital world. Data could be used to unlock commercial value, product optimization, and customization in any sector. Data generated by the user algorithms fed by data and algorithms produced Innovation Zynga. The P studio behind Farmville proclaimed that they were innovative because of the data they analyzed. Monetization, retention, and engagement every day for quantify what trapped the people and kept the whales spending. As Ziggen accumulated more users and data, they claimed that their analysis would only become more accurate and profitable as an online furniture store. Wayfair offered almost infinite number of furniture styles and brands. They talked about their proprietary real-time inventory customization and pricing algorithms that maximized profits. One every piece of furniture arrived sought to make the even education with a social network that collected data on secondary education students, although this product was never successful, until the leaders of TGAVE understood the narrative. There is a manual followed by many companies such as Facebook, LinkedIn, Netflix, or Spotify, which is taking on agent category build products and services that consumers value using technology to scale and take advantage of the data it generates. In the case of Facebook, is social, LinkedIn, professional, Netflix, entertainment, Spotify, music. The advantages that these companies have built up through their data makes very difficult to compete with each of them. If you have your customer's channel of distribution, you collect data, you add data, and you're able to use this data to improve your product, to monitor what people do in order to offer better products and services. You should be in the best position to provide overwhelming value to its customer base and build agent gap. Thousands of new startups from consumption flooded the market, backed by venture capital, and singing the same narrative that data is power. But these startups have not had the adoption and the network effects that pioneers such as Yelp, Pandora, LinkedIn, and Facebook. As a result, they had to spend millions of dollars on advertising to acquire users. This search for users. And their data was used to justify unsustainable spending on marketing and broken unitary economy. Turning around at the time was that these startups were not profitable by definition because they needed to acquire the data you need to boost your products and business. There was a wish that boasted that its algorithms could hook customers into buying junk online by words, and the open door that boasted that it had so much data that its algorithms could evaluate real estate better than humans and sell properties in anywhere for profit. Casper proclaimed that the data were the driving force behind the collapse of the mattress, the industry. And DH said it was the data that enabled fast delivery, order routing, and strong gains for show workers. And then there was O, a firm who claimed to have the data toy shoe microloans for luxury purchases. These are just the startups that we covered in the past in the modern MBA. There were many others, such as Blue Apron, who claimed to have so much data that they knew the taste profile of each individual. They could predict algorithmically the demand for any meal kit and achieve production efficiencies that none else could. Warby Parker insisted that they had data that another optical company had, and they were so data-driven that every pair of glasses would be a bestseller. Allbirds said they knew more about the customers than the traditional sneaker brands, and that over time would have margins and as many loyal customers as Nike. Sitfix declared that it had more customer data than any department store or fashion brand, and its algorithms could accurately predict which clothes someone would buy without being visto. Vistrar has promised to transform car buying with algorithms that ingest all sales in history and could generate the most accurate price for any vehicle with make, model, and year alone. Lemonade called itself a disruptor whose algorithms processed so much data 24 hours a day that they could processing claims and underwriting policies faster and cheaper than traditional insurance companies. The Landing Club said its data unlocked efficiency of the loans and in turn allowed them to issue loans online with lower interest rates through algorithms in minutes. Sophie boasted, which was collecting all the customer behavioral data that conventional banks didn't collect, and which would translate into better accuracy and higher profits. As a creditor, Fitbit revolutionized health and physical conditioning by quantifying and visualizing the performance of each individual Hoku physical activity, and flooded the market, backed by venture capital, and singing the same narrative that data is power. But these startups have not had the adoption and the network effects that pioneers such as Yelp, Pandora, LinkedIn, and Facebook. As a result, they had to spend millions of dollars on advertising to acquire users. This search for users. And their data was used to justify unsustainable spending on marketing and broken unitary economy. Turning around at the time was that these startups were not profitable by definition because they needed to acquire the data you need to boost your products and business. There was a wish that boasted that its algorithms could hook customers into buying junk online by words, and the open door that boasted that it had so much data that its algorithms could evaluate real estate better than humans and sell properties in anywhere for profit. Casper proclaimed that the data were the driving force behind the collapse of the mattress, the industry, and DH said it was the data that enabled fast delivery, order routing, and strong gains for show workers. And then there was a firm who claimed to have the data toy shoe microloans for luxury purchases. These are just the startups that we covered in the past in the modern MBA. There were many others, such as Blue Apron, who claimed to have so much data that they knew the taste profile of each individual. They could predict algorithmically the demand for any meal kit and achieve production efficiencies that none else could. Warby Parker insisted that they had data that another optical company had, and they were so data-driven that every pair of glasses would be a bestseller. Allbirds said they knew more about the customers than the traditional sneaker brands, and that over time would have margins and as many loyal customers as Nike. Sitfix declared that it had more customer data than any department store or fashion brand, and its algorithms could accurately predict which clothes someone would buy without being visto. Vistrar has promised to transform car buying with algorithms that ingest all sales in history and could generate the most accurate price for any vehicle with make, model, and year alone. Lemonade called itself a disruptor whose algorithms processed so much data 24 hours a day that they could process in claims and underwriting policies faster and cheaper than traditional insurance companies. The Landing Club said its data unlocked efficiency of the loans and in turn allowed them to issue loans online with lower interest rates through algorithms in minutes. Sophie boasted, which was collecting all the customer behavioral data that conventional banks didn't collect, and which would translate into better accuracy and higher profits as a creditor. Fitbit revolutionized health and physical conditioning by quantifying and visualizing the performance of each individual. Hoku physical activity and better culture. GR's newest CEO has bet everything the group is based on the data flow for each commercial transaction. We see everything that passes through these businesses, which allows us to provide our personalization and basic relevance with advanced techniques and machine learning. The secret of our methodology is a data-driven approach. 9 petab of data, and we test each feature. How many companies do this? No, none of this would have prevented the group from hitting rock bottom in just 5 years. Zynga, we have a very strong team of data scientists who analyze the relationship between the ads we run and the number, type, unit, and impact on player engagement. We have developed algorithms and machine learning. We will never have the same user data Facebook, but we can get close. That's how we stand out when we talk to advertisers with data science-focused engagement. Revenue improved, but Zing remained unsustainable. As always, Wayfair, we captured 4 TB of data every day and 40 billion customer actions a year. We have a depth of rare data in the domestic category. If you don't have the capacity to harness and manipulate the data for in-depth analysis, will be difficult. In the last 4 years, we have built 1,900 engineers and data scientists. Data science and machine learning influence our personalization, dynamic pricing, algorithmic merchandising, forecasting demand, and advertising. As a result, we were able to build multiple platforms with a strong, in-depth analysis of and how we conquered the world hundreds of years later. EA bleeding, losing almost $1 billion every year. Our direct-to-consumer platform is our most valuable asset that provides AMP-ins with parents' innovations, and we have a lot of data from our 6 years of work. History, we use machine learning to give us an idea of what customers are likely to place the order. This allows us to order the appropriate quantity of proteins and products, which has a direct impact on costs and margins. Food, none of this helped to remove the Blue Apron from his career downward spiral. Grubby Hub. We have data on more than 100 million orders. Our algorithms will get smarter about the dishes more popular in every neighborhood of more than 900 cities. There is no other company in BSGs that have this level of transactional data. The speed of the high quality and high fidelity that we are adding is incredible, with 70,000 points per day. The learnings from our huge data collections and websites. Data-driven will position us well in the coming years. The losses of the grubby hub have deepened, and their owners are still struggling to find someone willing to take the company off their hands. Landing Club, we issued more than the 40 billion in personal loans over 10 years. Then the data we generate is really huge. This is an advantage of big data. Simply, we have this huge scale, which allows us to analyze customer profiles, create unique experiences, and subscribe processes. We have deployed the latest machine learning to derive more than 100 personalized and behavioral attributes, half of which are proprietary and based on our exclusive data assets. Since then, the Lending Club has been in crisis and has reduced its business from loans and less than its income. Pandora's greatest strength is its wealth of data and its data science. We build our product based on data and algorithms, rich with 6 billion stations and 76 million users listening to 5 billion hours of music. We built this incredible product because we have access to the data, and that's what fuels the competitive advantage. Pandora has continued to lose money and users year after year. Sophia, we use data and machine learning to iterate and learn, which ultimately leads to innovation. We build technologies and processes that allow us to iterate and innovate at a much faster pace and at a much lower cost, which gives us more access to data and allows us to provide a better service to our customers. Members, since then, the company's valuation has plummeted as the company's in of grace. Innovation is just selling the same loan products that banks offer to generations, although with a nicer user interface and correction of points in our business model, are based on this incredible data that fundamentally, data helps us to buy more of the right product and to take it to more of the right people. We have a mechanism of personalization that gives us the ability to deeply understand customers and products and generate powerful recommendations on which products will be successful and with whom for millions of individualized customer preferences. We believe that our insights data science offers a significant competitive advantage that will grow over time. Fix today is a penny that has laid off thousands of employees, tried to force even more of their daily operations into their algorithms to cut costs. And yet so it just kept bleeding money and users year after year. And we know how things happened for Open Door Air, Wish, Casper, and DoorDash. It took until the beginning of 2020 for the big data narrative to disappear. No consumer startup demonstrated nothing significant with its big data, and Noon was going to wait another 10 years for progress. But even when the walls were closed, those startups resisted by shouting about machine learning, deep learning, insights, and innovation. For anyone willing to listen to their last sighs for the sake of what little remains of their actions and reputation. The founders, executives, and you of these companies can never admit the truth. However, when Big's hype train was at its peak between the early 2010s and the beginning of the 1990s, the 2020s saw Fortune 500 leaders in investor crisis mode were loving FANG and souring on corporations like dinosaurs stuck in the Stone Age. Walmart, on Mobile, Home Depot, AT&T, Comcast, Disney, PepsiCo, Chase, Citigroup, and other large companies have each committed hundreds of millions of dollars, some even billions, to develop these skills for themselves. They were all anxious to signal that they could be so innovators as well as technology startups and publicly display their investments in big data. Boot its adoption and fueled more by fear than by no CEO wants to be the one who ruined everything. It would be safer to have iron in the fire than to go against Silicon Valley, and smaller companies became equally involved, with the best example being the Under Armour that spent more than $500 million in fitness apps, with the dream of reaching FANG shores and discovering business sites on user data. The gold rush sell peace for the handful when aimed. There were thousands of startups following the same narrative that never came to light. However, as soon as the companies joined the revolution of the big data, the demand for talent has skyrocketed. These were technology's greenfield, and it was believed that the more people you could throw into the complexity, the quicker you get to a solution, the more opportunities and salaries for statisticians. Data scientists and software engineers reached record levels as the private sector competed for talent. But this only addressed the problem of who and not how. The majority of consumer startups and large corporations did not have the means, technical skills to extract, store, manipulate, analyze, and visualize data. And it would take too long to build everything ourselves. It would be quicker and cheaper, simply buy the tools if they existed. This demand generated a stream of entrepreneurial startups that rushed to provide ready-to-use software tools ready for use for big data. Because thousands of consumer startups have bet their lives on existence in these technologies, and the Fortune 500 were willing to spend billions of dollars have flowed year after year into these B2B startups. Unlike the consumer startups you support, the corporations had the appetite and opportunity to spend 7 to 8 figures. We perpetually build our product based on rich data and algorithms with 6 billion of stations and 76 million users listening to 5 billion hours of music. We've built this incredible product because we have access to the data. And that's what fuels the advantage. Competitive Pandora continued to lose money and users year after year. Sophia, we use data and machine learning to iterate and learn what ultimately leads to innovation. We build technologies and processes that allow us to iterate and innovate at a much faster pace and at a much lower cost. Provides more access to data and allows us to provide a better service to members. Since then, Sophie's evaluation plummeted because the company's renovation is just selling the same loan products that banks offer to generations. Although with a more pleasant user interface and a correction of points, our entire business model has changed. It's based on this incredible data that we have. Fundamentally, data helps us to buy more of the right product and to more of the right people. We have a mechanism of personalization that gives us the ability to deeply understand customers and products and generate powerful recommendations on which products will be successful and with whom for millions of individualized customer preferences. We believe that our insights of data science offer a significant competitive advantage that will grow over time. Set fixed today is a penny pincher that has laid off thousands of employees, stride to further strain its daily operations in their algorithms to cut costs, and yet Tomly continued to bleed money in users year after year. And we know how things turned out for Open Door, Wish, Casper, and Doe. It took time until the beginning of 2020 for the big data narrative to disappear. No consumer startup has shown nothing significant with its big data, and Noon would wait another 10 years for progress. However, when the walls closed and these startups resisted by shouting about machine learning, deep learning, groundbreaking insights for anyone willing to listen to their last breaths for the sake of what little remains of the world, their actions and reputation, the founding executives, and you of these companies will never be able to admit the truth. However, when the big data hype train was in full swing at its peak between the early 2010s and the early 2000s, 2020's Fortune 500 leaders were in investor crisis mode. We're loving the F and souring on corporations like dinosaurs stuck in the Stone Age, Walmart, Exxon, Mobile Home Depot, AI, Comcast, Disney, PepsiCo, Chase, Siri Group, and other large companies have each committed hundreds of millions of dollars, some even billions, to developing these capabilities for themselves. They were all eager to signal that they could be as innovative as technology startups and publicly display their investments in big data. However, its adoption has been fueled more by fear than merit. No CEO wants to be the one who screwed everything up. It would be safer to be the one who screwed everything up. Have iron in the fire than to go against Silicon Valley, and smaller companies became equally involved with the fork. The best example is Under Armour, which has spent more than $500 million on fitness apps with the dream of achieve F margins and discover. Business emits in user data during the gold rush. Sell peace to the handful, we name thousands of startups following the same narrative that was never made public. But as soon as companies joined, the big data demand for talent skyrocketed. These were greenfield technologies, and it was believed that the more people you could throw yourself into, the complexity faster, and you'd come up with a solution to work, opportunities, and salaries of statisticians, data scientists, software engineers reached record levels as the private sector competed for technical talent. But this only addressed the problem of who and not how. The most consumer startups and large corporations do not have the technical means to extract, store, manipulating, analyzing, and visualizing data, and it would take too long to build everything yourself. It would be faster and cheaper, simply buy the tools if they existed. This demand generated a flow of money, of entrepreneurial startups that rushed to provide ready-to-use software tools to big data, because thousands of consumer startups have bet their existence on these technologies, and the Fortune 500 were willing to spend a lot to catch up. Billions of dollars flowed into these BBs year after year. Startups, unlike the consumer startups supported by you, the corporations had an appetite and the opportunity to spend 7 to 8 figures in perpetuity with any supplier that can help them reach the promised land. If we visit the technological posts of the last decade and look at for the companies with the highest valuation since IPO, the winners are almost all startups companies. Dogs Plumer, 2 leaders in telemetry that to date have achieved valuations of billions of dollars selling desktop software for data capture and monitoring. Tableau and Ahige have benefited dramatically from the big data trends. In the 2010s, Snowflake, Sumologic, Port-on vCase, and Cloudera are startups that have quickly surpassed hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue selling essential items for big data. All those pet bits needed to be placed somewhere that would lead to the storage of startups like Hackspace, Backblast boxes, and databases. Startups like MongoDB. The demand for data and engagement meant greater emphasis on SMS email, which Esgrid, RingCentral, and Killyou were happy to provide for a price. The volume of information, data sensitivity, and complexity. Application logic has made these companies targets for hackers, supplying security. As CloudStrack, Barracuda, Octal, Alto networks thrived on the promise of helping companies and startups to protect their data and to speed up execution. Startups like Atlan Serve, CNOL, JFrog, and Slack call themselves critical tools for boosting the productivity and collaboration of the world. Workers being bobbed by default doesn't guarantee profitability, since Snowfall and many others are still looking for it. Profitability, but their valuations are significantly more resilient than those of consumer startups, given the widespread demand, the exceptional size of the business, and the slow turnover of software alone. Once a tool or supplier has taken root in a large company, it is difficult to eliminate it. Not all Fortune 500 companies had the talent to execute, and most had to pay an external company to do so. During implementation, money flowed not only for tools, but also for consultancy services for Center HP and DM Oracle Bus. Allen Hamilton and Gartner promised that they had the necessary experience to carry out any big data project. It's no surprise that these same consultants are now touting artificial intelligence in the final analysis. The companies that have profited most from big data have been the players of the AWS cloud. GCP and Azure grew the most during this 10-year period. Consumer startups were spending their venture capital dollars building their products in the cloud. Fortune 500 companies were using big data as a function to force cloud adoption in their organizations. And Bob's startups were building their tools in the cloud. It doesn't matter if it's big data, machine learning, IoT, augmented reality, or artificial intelligence. As long as people are using the cloud and anything else, trending technology leads them to use it more. Amazon, Google, and Azure win. Software engineers have always been in high demand, but the paradigm shifted in the 3D decades of the 2010s and 2020s with big growth. Throughout the private sector, companies were on the lookout for professionals offering the highest salaries. Few with real-world experiences, since the technology was so new that there were no practical. Everyone was figuring it out as they went along and doing everything openly in the Jituify. If you were an engineer, you could get experience through your day job or a thumb through open source tools. If you know the most popular tools could declare this proficiency on his CV and be rewarded with a better paid job. Elsewhere within months, software development based on CV amplified big data, where engineers are encouraged to learn and evangelize technologies with the soul in order to maximize remuneration and employability. Today's developers are no longer coding GR United, but instead vocal rock stars who can make demands and lead change. They decide which clouds to use, which tools to adopt, and which suppliers to partner with. That's why that companies and cloud providers spend millions every year on pizza and Serve J conventions. Just to wooing developers and turning them into champions of your products is like a battle of the religions, and who can convert more to their faith at a given time. As a result, software engineering has become tribal, as developers link their salaries and career prospects to the popularity of technologies that they adopt and not their entrepreneurial contribution. In startups and companies, Fortune 500 continue to invest because their technical teams are encouraged to value their work even when there's nothing to show for it. That's the only way these engineers, their managers, and their vice presidents to justify budgets and get raises and climb the ladder. The people who worked with big data had an interest in keeping the technology in fashion despite the lack of results. And now they're doing the same with artificial intelligence, whether it's bottom up or top down. Low money talks, even to those who are simply adopting the technology themselves. Which is why we never end to the online debates between React versus Angular, Golan versus Kubernetes versus CS. And soon you can see the event tribalism in artificial intelligence, where there are equally strong opinions about which tool is it better to have the soft Lobiter or which model is more accurate, Cloud, GPT-4, or Zeman. At the premise of big data was that you could discover hidden innovation, business value, customer insights, market patterns of petabytes of data that were too complicated to be digested and analyzed by a human being. Today, everyone has apparently forgotten the failed promises of big data, and artificial intelligence is the talk of the town. But the current premise of artificial intelligence is even more so confusing. The new narrative is that the data is inherently too complex. And instead of what we should believe is that all the promised innovation, the hidden insights, and the hidden commercial value still are in that data. It's just that humans can't remove them instead of having to trust this artificial being where only a few TM have an understanding of what is really going on behind the scenes. For perspective and insights, we should receive the answers and not seek them out to ourselves. And we should value digestibility, packaging, and speed above the accuracy of the information itself. For big data, each company had its own data schedules, policies, and priorities that made the execution completely unique. Each implementation was as now flake deployment as nobody has gotten any value from big data. Nobody really knows even now, almost a decade later, how really implement and derive value. No one can say with authority, this is how you execute, and this is how you can replicate step by step what we did by yourself. The engineers are essentially reinventing the wheel, but never-ending executive managers are pushing for vanity upgrades and exaggerated progress to increase his organizational influence, appease his superiors, and secure his own promotions. The same is happening and will happen with artificial intelligence. The market dynamics that drove big data are now happening once again with artificial intelligence. Thousands of consumer startups are coming onto the market to sell artificial intelligence products with just a few clicks. Commercial value promise corporate suppliers selling artificial intelligence tools to sell to these consumer startups. The Fortam 500 companies running scared once again, cloud providers and manufacturers of chips laughing from their ivory towers of the rain of money falling from the sky. Engineers jumping to fill in resumes and improve career prospects, and technology is onto the darling of Wall Street like her bimbo. Uber, the GP chat, was built on the basis of the same GPT chat footwheel regulation manual that has gone viral for its breadth of knowledge and compelling human prose. But when everything is built on stolen data, who holds the people who generated the data? Or the technology that's summarized, just like any other Valley technology. In the last decade, artificial intelligence has become just another way of making money, which is why the OpenAI employees revolted when Sunan Altman was sacked, because his removal caused them to feel they have worthless shares, and all the employees are looking for a big payout, as well as SMON, the board, and OS. It's not a question of whether the great language models have merit or not. That technology will improve over time, but based on the little commercial value has been provided in the last decade from big data, blocking AAS to artificial intelligence deserves much greater scrutiny. Not all innovation can be monetized, and not all technology. Big data hasn't made any difference to consumer startups and companies that are promising and need to be a business. The 500 in the last decade has actually prolonged the life of startups that should never have existed in today's world. Today, all companies are making redundancies, cutting costs, getting involved in counterfeiting and buying back actions to reduce profits, as they have always done things that they shouldn't have had to do. If big data really generated innovation in larger businesses' efficiency that was promised, there is nothing to suggest in the fundamentals that big data has obtained any improvements in the company's business. If there really was business value in big data, someone would now have something to show. The same dynamics is happening with artificial intelligence. Every talk, no show, all hype, and results, all sizzle, no steak. Everyone is falling for the same ploy once again. The only ones winners of big data were the founders, executives, and you of the consumer startups that liquidated their shares in the IPO, and those in the bet startups. The losers were the investors and the employees of these companies. Guess who will be the winners and losers of the intelligence artificial official? And what is the value of information without critical thinking, art without authenticity, and creation without originality?